Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulihi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. I'm so excited today to be able to welcome you to the Ramadan preparation program for ICB Wayland. It's, like we were saying before Dhuhr, such a ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this month has come. We pray, the Sahaba of the Prophet would pray for 6 months, Allahumma balighna Ramadan. And, we are so fortunate that Ramadan is now impending upon us. And we're also so fortunate that we could welcome Dr. Suheil into our masjid to teach us a little bit of how we can make the most use of these blessings, the most use of the gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to His ummah, and to maximize this as much as is possible. Dr. Suheil is a fellow African. He is from South Africa. I'm from Kenya. So that gives me even additional pleasure that he is here. And as you know, he's a scholar who teaches at the seminary, as well as teaching at Boston Islamic Seminary. And we are very, very fortunate for everything that he has done for BIS. Continues to teach the schools, some of the sessions there. And we're increasing our partnership with them, just so that you're aware that inshallah, even during this Ramadan, we're going to have a special session with BIS as a Qiyamul Layl program. With that, I will hand it over to Dr. Suheil, and I would like again to thank you so much for helping us with this. Just so that you know the logistics of the program, it will run for close to an hour to begin with, then we'll have a break. There'll be food for all of you, some snacks, some tea that we can have. Then we'll come back for a shorter session and any questions that you may have before we intend to close sometime before 4 p.m. So I would say about an hour from now, we'll break for maybe about 20 minutes. Then we'll come back, a little short session, any questions, and then inshallah we'll end at that point. It's also available on YouTube, and it's going to be recorded there in case you need some notes or anything else that you need to fulfill. So once again, Dr. Suheil, the floor is yours. Jazakallah khair for gracing us with your ilm and for coming to ICB Wayland.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Can people hear me? Okay. At the back. Little low? Okay. Maybe raise it. Okay. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. Ramadan is almost here. A few days left. And I think the best way we could start would be from recitation from the Quran. Any huffaz of Quran here? To recite these verses for us from Surah Al-Baqarah? No. Anyone who is not Hafid but would be comfortable reciting from the Mus'haf? No volunteers?
I would if there's nobody else. I would.
Okay. I will find the verse number for you. So there are these verses in, let me see, Surah Al-Baqarah, I think verse 100 and something.
Does it start at
Yeah,
183?
يا أيها الذين آمنوا, yes, 180, yes, 183 through 185.
May I read you guys a microphone to read what we ended?
I guess you can go up to there.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون أياما معدودات فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر وعلى الذين يطيقونه فدية طعام مسكين فمن تطوع خيرا فهو خير له وأن تصوموا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم ولعلكم تشكرون وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداعي إذا دعان فليستجيبوا لي وليؤمنوا بي لعلهم يرشدون صدق الله العظيم.
Thank you, Sister Fatima. So these verses are about, firstly, fasting, that the obligation of fasting is not a new obligation. The previous religious communities, Jews and Christians, also know about it. It was also part of the law brought by the previous prophets. Ayyaman ma'dudat, it is just a finite number of days, 29 or 30 days, depending on the year. So, the question is not really whether we will make it, because inshallah, most of us, I think most of us have done it before. And actually this year will be easier than in previous years. About 3 or 4 years ago, when Ramadan was in the summer, the days were much longer. The weather was hotter. So the question is not whether we will make it to the end. The question is, what will we have to show for it by the end? Either we reach the end of Ramadan with our sins forgiven and in a spiritually rejuvenated state, spiritually refreshed, to enable us to face the challenges of the coming 11 months with more strength, and to be better people in the 11 months following. Or the other possibility, may Allah save all of us from that, is to reach the end of the month with no real change, without our sins forgiven. In the hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the hadith reported by Bukhari and Muslim, إذا جاء رمضان فتحت أبواب الجنة وغلقت أبواب الجحيم وصفدت الشياطين. That when Ramadan comes, the doors of paradise, the doors of Jannah are opened, and the doors of hellfire, Jahannam, are closed, and the shayateen, the devils, the demons, are chained. So Ramadan is an opportunity. The shayateen are chained, so it is easier for us to do good. And as we know, when Ramadan comes, many Muslims who might be regularly committing some sin, when Ramadan comes, they stop that sin immediately. Yes, many of those people, when Ramadan ends, they go back to that sin. But the point here is, of course, that is not good to go back to the sin. But the point here is that many people are able to stop their sins during Ramadan. And why is this possible? Why is this easier? Because the shayateen are chained. But someone might ask that, all right, if the shayateen are chained up, then why is it that some people continue to do evil? Anyone want to suggest an answer?
Comes from the lower self.
Yes, good. That is one answer. That all the evil cannot be, we cannot say it is the fault of shaitan. Another source of evil is our own lower tendencies, our own lower desires. Good. That is one part of the answer. Anyone want to add anything? Go ahead.
The shayateen may still have some influence even though they're chained.
Yes, good. So even if someone is chained, he can still move, but the movement is restricted. So even though the shayateen are chained, they can still have some influence. And another possibility, which is suggested by another version of the hadith, were suffidat maradatu shayateen, that the rebellious shayateen are chained. So maybe it is not all the shayateen, but the most rebellious ones of them. Maybe only they are chained. Okay, so we said Ramadan is an opportunity because the shaitans are chained. It is easier for us to stay away from sins and to do good. Okay, let's take a step back. Imagine yourself in the Sahara Desert. Where's Sahara Desert? Who knows? Yeah, let's have a reply from one of the youth. Where's Sahara Desert? Which continent? Africa, right. Big desert. Imagine that you are there and you can close your eyes for a few seconds. Imagine you are there. Now, what do you see all around you? All around you? Sand. How much sand? Infinite or just a lot? A lot. But as you will see, it is not really infinite. So as far as your eye can see, you see only sand. Probably millions, billions, trillions of grains of sand. Now imagine that a bird comes and takes one grain of sand in its beak and then flies away. And then 1 year later, the same bird comes again. It has dropped that grain of sand somewhere else, and now it comes back, it picks up another grain of sand. And it does the same thing. It flies away to drop that sand somewhere else, and then 1 year later it will come again. How many years would it take for all the sand in the Sahara Desert to get finished, to be carried away by this bird? More than its lifetime, good. But let's assume that this is a special bird which will not die until the Day of Judgment. So,
Possibly until the Day of Judgment.
yeah, it might take until the Day of Judgment. Yeah, I'm sure if you Google how many grains of sand in the Sahara Desert, you will find a number, an estimate, but probably it is billions or trillions or even more. Yeah, actually, Google is a number also, right? So it might be one Google number of grains of sand or more. So that would be one Google number of years or more. But is that eternity? Is that infinity? No. Because if assuming we had a long enough time and assuming the bird lived long enough and it did not get discouraged, then eventually it would have carried away all of the sand. It might be many, many years, but still there would come a time when there would be no sand remaining. So this is an end point. If there's an end point, then that is not eternity. That is not infinity. How about the hereafter, al-akhirah? Does this end? No. Doesn't end. No end. So longer than it would take that bird to carry away all the sand in the desert. Infinitely longer. Those who know advanced math know that the ratio of any number to infinity is what? 0. 1 divided by infinity is 0. 1 million divided by infinity is also 0. So in other words, if you compare the human lifespan in this world, regardless how long you live, whether it is 70, 80, 90, 100, 120 years, if you divide that by infinity, in other words, if you compare that to the hereafter, the ratio is 0, meaning this world compared to the hereafter is like nothing. So, in that case, how can we make sense of this? People either obey Allah or disobey Allah for, let's say, 100 years, maybe some people less, some people more, but let's just assume 100 years. Would it not make more sense that this person who obeyed Allah for 100 years would be in Jannah for 100 years and then cease to exist? And similarly, the person who disobeyed Allah for 100 years, he would be punished for 100 years and then cease to exist? You might think so, but let's think deeper. How can we make sense of the fact that the hereafter is not 100 years, it's not however long you live in this world, it is eternal? Anyone have an answer? Yes, sister?
Because al-amal with the niyyah, the person with actions by intention, the person who will obey Allah, if he obeyed with the intention to obey Allah, if he was given 1,000 years with that intention, given another 1,000 years, he would have obeyed Allah with 1,000 years. He's given Jannah for eternity because he had the intention that no matter how much time he was given, he would have continued with the intention of obedience. He's rewarded with, he had the intention of eternal obedience. He's rewarded with eternal Jannah. The one with disobedience is the same, even 100 years of disobedience. No matter how long his lifetime, even 1,000 years or more, he had the intention of disobedience. Even if he had a longer lifespan, his intention, whatever lifetime longer he would have been given, he would have continued with that
Exactly.
intention. He's rewarded with eternal Jahannam with his intention, because he, even given more time, he had that intention to continue disobeying Allah, even if he had been given more time. So he is also rewarded with his intention.
Right, Barakallah feek. Thank you. So this is the same answer, essentially, which was given to this question by a famous scholar of the Tabi'in, Al-Hasan al-Basri. Right? He said that the people of Jannah are forever in Jannah because of the intention, and the people of Jahannam are forever in Jahannam because of the intention. So, yeah, let's come back to Ramadan. How is this relevant to Ramadan? Firstly, make your intention. For this Ramadan, inshallah, we will all survive to witness this Ramadan entirely, and inshallah, many, many more Ramadans after this. Make the intention that you will make a sincere effort, especially in Ramadan, but of course also during the rest of the year, for this Ramadan and for future Ramadans. So we can explain this, why the hereafter is without end, with reference to the intention, but at the same time, we need to recognize that we don't really deserve that much, right? If Allah put the pious people in Jannah for the same duration as their lifespan on earth, we could not say that that is unfair, right? But it is from the favor and blessing of Allah that He has chosen to give eternal reward. So we have to, we should acknowledge the kindness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to build on that, we should be looking for opportunities to at least try to earn the reward from Allah, the eternal reward. So, I'm going to spell a word. I want one of the youth to tell me what that word is. It's an easy word. L-E-V-E-R. What does that spell? Lever. Right, that is an American pronunciation. British pronunciation is lever. But what is a lever or lever? Right? You have a, sometimes the mics have it, but this one doesn't. Basically, it's like a stick which has a pivot, right? And you apply a small force, a long distance from the pivot, and that translates to a bigger force on the other end. So you are multiplying the force. You apply a small force on one end and you get a much bigger return. So, is there something similar in the spiritual dimension? Yes, there's what we could call spiritual leverage. So, there are some of these opportunities for spiritual leverage throughout the year, every day. You can get, for some deeds, 27-fold return on your effort. Who knows what I'm talking about? What is the reward multiplied 27 times for? Praying in Jama'ah every day, right? Then, there also there are special places, right? For example, to pray in Masjid al-Haram, to pray one prayer in Masjid al-Haram is also multiplied many times. Who knows, who remembers the number in Mecca?
10,000.
I think it's more than that, no? 100? I think it's 100,000 in Mecca and I think 50,000 Medina and 10,000 in Jerusalem, as far as I remember. Okay. Then, there's a hadith about Ramadan. There's some disagreement about the authenticity of this hadith. It is in Sahih ibn Khuzaymah and other books. But according to this hadith, the reward for one fard in Ramadan is equivalent to 70 fard in any other month. And the reward for one nafil deed in Ramadan, according to this hadith, is the reward of a fard deed in any other month. So we had 1 to 27 multiplication. We had 100,000 and 50,000 and 10,000 for these special places. We have potentially 70 times multiplication for Ramadan, although you're not sure about that because we are not sure of the status of that hadith. But also in Ramadan, we have a special night. What is that night called? Laylat al-Qadr. How do we translate that? Night of? Value, good. Night of value is one good translation. What else could you translate it as? Night of power is often used, but I don't think it is really an accurate translation. Power is qudra, not qadr, from the same root but different word. Even though many people use that translation, but it is not the best translation. But there's one other translation besides night of value, which is also valid. Decree, yes. Qadr, like we believe in qadr, right? The same word, night of decree or night of destiny. Okay, so what does the Quran tell us about this night? Is it better than 1,000 months? 1,000 months is how many years? I think about 86, if I remember correctly. Someone can do the math quickly, but definitely more than 80 years. More than 80 years. So, of course, for Islamic purposes, we use the lunar year, which is how many days? Not 365. How many days is the lunar year? Who knows? About 355, which is about 10 days shorter than the solar year, right? Because each lunar month is either 29 or 30 days. So the maximum it could be would be 360, but it is unlikely that all the months will be 30 days. Some of them will be 29. So it would be about 355. So 355 days multiplied by, what is it? I think 86 years. You can do the math. That would be how many days? About, about 300,000, is that right? 31,000 days? Okay. But yeah, this is one night better than 31,000 days. And a night is only about half of the day. So you can multiply that by another 2. So in other words, about 60,000 multiplication here. You get 60,000 return on your investment of any good deeds you do on Laylat al-Qadr. Okay, so we talked about intention, but in order for intention to be meaningful, it must be accompanied by planning. So you need to intend, yes, intend to do good and to make extra effort during Ramadan, but also from now you need to plan how exactly you are going to accomplish this extra effort. And maybe we'll talk more about that a little later. But let's talk more about Ramadan. So Ramadan, getting back to the verses that were recited, Ramadan, the first verse we heard recited was about fasting, and then the next verse we learned that it is ayyam ma'dudat, it is a finite number of days, and then the verse goes on with some other things, and then the next verse is about Ramadan. That the month of Ramadan is the month in which the Quran was revealed as a guidance to people and clear signs of the guidance and the criterion. Who knows what criterion means? Yeah, that is the Arabic word. But what does it mean in English? It
Standard by which you discern right and wrong.
exactly. It enables you to distinguish between right and wrong, between good and evil. So the Quran allows us to do this. How? How is the Quran a criterion? You don't need to overthink it. One part of the answer is kind of a no-brainer.
It has moral instruction.
Yes, it has moral teachings which tell us what is good and what is bad. Okay, but does everyone who reads the Quran automatically act on it? No. So there's another step. The Quran is only a criterion for you to the extent that you make the effort to internalize the Quran. How do you do that? Inshallah, we'll come back to that. But then the verse goes on, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْهُ. Whoever among you witnesses the month should fast. فَمَنْ, therefore. So what was before this? That the Quran was revealed in the month of Ramadan, and therefore, whoever among you witnesses this month should fast. In other words, there is a connection between revelation of the Quran in Ramadan and fasting. How are they connected? Anyone want to try to answer? You can guess.
What's the question again?
What kind of connection or connections are there between the Quran and fasting, or the revelation of the Quran and fasting? Okay, so how does that lead to fasting? Why should you fast? Because the Quran was revealed, Sister Fatima? Allah said you should fast, but also we saw from the verse that a connection is being made. Therefore,
So does fasting facilitate the receptivity of the Quran?
yes, good. Fasting is a means for benefiting from the Quran. What was the word you used?
Facilitate the receptivity.
Facilitate the reception of the Quran. Very good. Right. So during the day, we are fasting. We are staying away from the material enjoyments of food and so on. We are emptying ourselves of the material. And then yes, at iftar we can eat, but you should not eat too much. What happens if you eat too much? Yes. So even if maybe in previous Ramadans you you invited some for iftar, so you ate a lot, and then you come to the masjid, you are doing Taraweeh. What happens? Yeah. Yes, you are tired and sleepy during the Taraweeh. In other words, you are not getting the full benefit of the Taraweeh. Inshallah, there's still some benefit you are getting, but you are not getting the full benefit. So yes, eating too much at iftar interferes with your ability to benefit from the Quran. And as Dr. Ahmed pointed out, we could say that too much food, you said, suffocates the soul.
Because it's inverse relation between and actually even for the imam, if the imam who's leading the prayer ate too much, he's not going to be able really to go on with the recitation. So
Yes,
most of the companion and the scholar was known for eating just little bit.
yes, Barakallahu feek. So yes, as you said, particularly for the person leading the Taraweeh, it is very difficult to lead the Taraweeh if you have eaten too much. So yeah, those who lead the Taraweeh, typically if you ask them, they will tell you that they eat just a little bit at iftar, and then after the Taraweeh, they might eat some more. So getting back to what we were discussing, so we basically, by fasting, we are emptying ourselves of the material. At iftar, we eat a little bit, but still we are not filling ourselves too much. And then we perform Taraweeh or Tahajjud or Qiyam, whatever it is. And by doing that, we are filling ourselves with the spiritual food. Right? So this is the connection. We empty ourselves of the material, food and so on, and then we fill ourselves with the spiritual food. And also, of course, there are other benefits. By fasting, we realize what it is like to be hungry. And so we should feel more sympathy and compassion for those who are poor. Right? We know there are many people, even if it's not Ramadan, they skip lunch because they cannot afford it. Right? Many countries and around the world where there is famine or shortage of food. And even in this country, actually, there are low-income households, right? And yeah, if there is a snow day on which school is cancelled, then many children will be happy because no school, but some children are disappointed because it means they will not get the breakfast and lunch at school. In other words, they will be hungry that day because their family cannot afford food. So even in this country, there are people, hungry people. So also in Ramadan, another thing to add to your planning list, to give charity. And a lot of people, of course, like to give their zakat during Ramadan in order to try to get the additional blessings of the month. So it is good from that angle to give your zakat in Ramadan. Definitely, if your due date is already passed, then you should not delay. And even if your due date is after Ramadan, you can advance pay the zakat. And then beyond the zakat, you can give optional charity, sadaqat. And of course, nowadays, we have all this technology. You could potentially set up an automatic charity payment to a relief organization, for example. $1 each day of Ramadan, or $10 each day of Ramadan. And yeah, depending on your ability, some people might even be able to do $100 each day of Ramadan. That way you don't have to worry about forgetting. And also a reminder that at the end of Ramadan, before the Salatul Eid, there is the Sadaqat al-Fitr or Zakat al-Fitr, which is about $12 to $15 per person, which should be given to the poor Muslims, and it is a means to allow them to buy things and to enjoy Eid. Okay, so we were talking about connection between fasting and the Quran, and then we also talked about charity. And yeah, there's also great reward for feeding the fasting people, even if they are not poor, right? So yeah, is this masjid going to have iftar in the and dinner in the masjid every day or Saturdays, every Saturday? So yeah, I'm sure by this time people have already volunteered to sponsor that. But yeah, that is one way in which you can feed poor people. But if you did not manage to get on the list here, of course, there are other masajid in other towns and in other countries. And there are, yeah, actually, if you feed poor fasting people, then this is a double reward. And there are many of these relief organizations who have iftar programs for the needy in other countries. So, yeah, you can look into that, find an organization which you trust, and you can fund one person or 10 people for iftar during the entire month. Okay. We talked about Laylat al-Qadr. When is Laylat al-Qadr? Good. In the last 10 nights of Ramadan, according to most scholars. Actually, there's a minority view that it could be any day of the year. Right? Someone asked Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, when is Laylat al-Qadr? He said, if you do tahajjud every night of the year, you will not miss Laylat al-Qadr. All right? But yeah, according to the majority of scholars, it is during the last 10 nights of Ramadan. Yeah, if you ask some Muslims, they will say the 27th night. But yeah, the 27th night, according to many scholars, has a high possibility of being Laylat al-Qadr, but it is not definite, right? So, yes, you can make more effort on the 27th night, but you should make some extra effort on all of the last 10 nights, particularly the odd-numbered nights. And something related to this is i'tikaf. The Prophet ﷺ used to spend the entire last 10 nights and days in the masjid for i'tikaf to concentrate on ibadah. If you are not able to do the entire last 10 days, you can even do one night, right? Go into the masjid, enter the masjid before Maghrib and leave after Fajr. If you cannot even do the entire night, you can do a part of the night, right? From Isha to Fajr, or from maybe some masajid have tahajjud in the last 10 nights. Yeah, let's see. Fajr this year will be what, about 5:30 at the beginning of Ramadan. So I guess you could, they'll probably start the communal tahajjud about 4, maybe 4 to 4:30 or 4 to 5. So you could do, make intention for i'tikaf from 4 until Fajr. Okay. So i'tikaf is another thing you can add to your list, your planning list. Ramadan is also the month of patience. Right, there's a nice hadith. This is beginning of the hadith. كل عمل ابن آدم له إلا الصوم فإنه لي وأنا أجزي به. That it is a hadith Qudsi, where Allah says that all the deeds of the son of Adam are for himself, except for fasting. It is for me, and I will reward it. Let's see. فإذا كان يوم صوم أحدكم فلا يصخب ولا يرفث فإن سابه أحد أو قاتله فليقل إني صائم. So actually before we discuss that, what is the meaning of the first part of this hadith, that all our deeds are for ourselves except for fasting? Fasting is for Allah. Isn't salah for Allah as well? Isn't zakat for Allah? Yes. But in what sense is fasting different?
My idea is distinguished to Allah that no one fasts, even who worship something outside of Allah, no one fasts for his idol or his head.
Yeah, that is one explanation, that the Arabs before Islam used to pray to their idols and so on, but if they fasted, they would fast only for Allah. Yes, that is another part of the answer. Fasting is a hidden ibadah. No one knows whether you are really fasting except for Allah. When you are alone, no one else will know other than you and Allah whether you secretly drink some water or eat some food. But we do not do that because we know Allah is watching us. So even if no one sees us, no people are seeing us, we do not eat or drink anything while we are fasting. So in that sense, fasting is special, right? Because for Salah, people can see you praying. Right? There's the story of the foolish person who was in one of the, I think, masajid of Kufa in earlier times. And after the Fard Salah, he was doing a lot of nawafil, and people were amazed that, mashallah, he's praying so much. And he heard people praising him, and while he was still praying, he said, "You know what? I'm fasting also." All right, so yes, for praying and charity and so on, people can see you, and there is the danger of riyah, right? Danger of showing off, doing the deed for the wrong intention, to be praised by people instead of for the pleasure of Allah. But for fasting, that is not possible unless you actually, like the person in that story, unless you actually tell people that you are fasting, otherwise no one will know. Okay. So that is another sense in which this fasting is for Allah in a sense that other deeds of ibadah are not. Okay, and then continuing with the hadith. So when it's the day of fasting for any one of you, then he should not yell, right? Do not raise your voice and do not use bad language. فَلَا يَصْخَبْ وَلَا يَرْفَثْ. And if someone insults you, if someone uses bad language with you or tries to start a fight with you, then you should say that I am fasting. So in other words, you don't become provoked. That needs patience. What are other scenarios in Ramadan which need patience?
Guarding your eyes, guarding your eyesight.
Yes, good. This is sabr anil ma'asiyah, another type of sabr, guarding your eyes and similarly your ears from looking and listening to haram things. What else? Children, yes. Those who are children, try to make extra effort to be patient with your children, even if they do something wrong. Anyone else? Okay, what about at the masjid? Stay away from arguing with other people, whether at the masjid or elsewhere. Also at the masjid, you want to catch the salah, and so you double park, or you park illegally. Is that sabr? No. Sabr is that you realize that, all right, I need to be considerate of other people, even if I get late. So even if I miss the jama'ah, Allah knows that I was making the effort, I had the intention. So inshallah, provided you are not negligent and you left home in enough time to get to the masjid in enough time, then inshallah you will get the reward, even if you miss the jama'ah. So don't park illegally, don't block other people, don't give the Muslims a bad reputation with the neighbors by parking in their driveways and so on. Okay, we're almost time for our break. Let's finish up the hadith. والذي نفسي بيده لخلوف فم الصائم أطيب عند الله من ريح المسك. That by Allah, the smell from the mouth of the fasting person is more beloved to Allah than musk. للصائم فرحتان يفرحهما إذا أفطر فرح بفطره وإذا لقي ربه فرح بصومه. The fasting person has two joys. When he breaks his fast, he is joyful because he is breaking his fast, of course, even though the fasting this year, at least at the beginning of Ramadan, will be quite short, all right? Which I think about 13 and a half hours. So it might not be that difficult, but in spite of that, by the time of iftar, you will feel relief and joy when you have that date and that water. The aftara fariha bifitrihi. When he breaks his fast, he's joyful because he is eating. And the second joy, when he meets his Lord, he is joyful because of his fast. When he sees the reward and he sees that Allah is pleased with him because he fasted. And remember, there is a special door of Jannah which is only for the people who fasted. What is the name of that door? Rayyan. Rayyan. It will be opened and the people who fasted will enter from that door, enter into Jannah, and then the door will be closed. No one will be allowed to go through that door except the people who fasted. Let's mention a couple of other points about the reward of fasting, and then we'll take a break. So the reward of fasting the whole month of Ramadan is what, according to the hadith in Bukhari and Muslim? من صام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. Whoever fasts Ramadan, in other words, the whole month, whoever fasts the whole month, all his previous sins are forgiven him. Right? All the previous sins are forgiven. Also, the dua of this fasting person at the time of breaking the fast is accepted. This is one of 3 du'as that the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah has guaranteed to accept, even if the response is not immediate. لأنصرنك ولو بعد حين. Okay, so another thing to add to your list, a few minutes before iftar, sit down and make dua. Or even at the time on the given on the schedule for sunset, sit down and make dua for a few minutes before you break your fast, because actually many fuqaha recommend that if you are breaking your fast based on a calculated schedule, then you should realize that there is a margin of error, right? Astronomers can tell us that, for example, on Thursday, the sunset time is 7 p.m. But they will also tell you that there is a margin of error based on atmospheric conditions and based on your elevation among sea level. This could be a little bit earlier or a little bit later. So if you allow 3 minutes leeway, so you take the time on the Ramadan schedule for sunset, or you search on Google, sunset time Wayland, or whatever town you live in, add 3 minutes to that. So when it is the time given for sunset, make dua for 3 minutes and then break your fast. And actually many masajid, they will only make the adhan 3 minutes after the time for sunset. Okay, dua accepted at the time of breaking the fast. So make dua for yourself and your family, and your neighbors and your community and all the Muslims and all the world, for the needs of this world and needs of the hereafter. Okay, I think we can take a break now. How long did you want to take a break for? 15, 20 minutes?
I think we'll take a break for about 15 minutes. There's snacks outside for you. Have some tea. For those online as well, we will resume in 15 minutes time from now for the final part of it. So, Jazakallah khair.
Grade 7.5 children, students
Ma'am,
of that game program.
Can you explain the mic about the restart?
Yeah. For those of you following online, we will resume in 15 minutes from now. 15 minutes.